I'm Dr. Jim Taylor, and welcome to Prime Family Alert. This segment of Prime Family Alert focuses on values. Values have gotten a bad rap. When most people think of values these days, they think of those hot-button topics and the divisive battle between so-called red state values and blue state values. They think of politicians, media talking heads, and other groups using values to push their own agendas. As America's discussion of values has focused on these divisions, we've lost sight of the essential reality that we share far more values than those on which we differ. Regardless of where we live or what our political or religious beliefs, I'm certain that just about all Americans believe in the values of respect, responsibility, opportunities for success and happiness, family, compassion, justice, tolerance, and many others. I call these red, white, and blue state values. These are the values on which our country was built and that has enabled it to thrive for over 230 years. These are the values that give us meaning, that unite us, and make America strong. And importantly, it's these values that will protect your children from a popular culture that wants to teach them decidedly unhealthy values. Now, it's not my place to tell you what you should value. I will nonetheless tell you that you should know what you value and make sure that your values are healthy for your family. Educating your children about values can begin as soon as they develop the ability to talk, listen, and to understand consequences. You want to introduce them to these values, the role that they play in their lives, and the importance to the family as early as possible, so that they develop positive values before they're exposed to popular culture. Give your children a clear definition of what values are, and discuss with them how values affect their lives and those of others. Key issues that you should emphasize are that values are embraced by most of our society as a whole, guide our lives, establish priorities for what's important, and ultimately act as a roadmap in determining the direction of their lives. You should also highlight values that your children can understand and relate to. When your children act in ways that express a family value, you can point out what the value is and what they're doing that reflects the value. Cooperation and responsibility, for example, when they bring their dishes to the sink after dinner. Commitment and hard work, when they devote considerable time to a project at school. Compassion, contributing to a favorite charity. You should then talk to your children about why values are important and how values benefit them and others. Some key questions to ask include, what do values offer your children as individuals? How do they affect your family? What role do values play in our community and society in general? The answers to these questions will help your children recognize the essential importance of values and why they should adopt healthy values. Again, give examples such as generosity, accountability, and honesty, and show how these specific values affect your children's lives. For example, when your children are considerate to their siblings, show them how it benefits them. Their siblings are nice back to them, and the family as a whole. Everybody gets along. A useful way to teach your children values is to identify unhealthy values and help them to see the difference between positive and negative values. Using examples such as greed, selfishness, and dishonesty can help you illustrate how these values hurt your children, your family, your community, and our society as a whole. When your children express unhealthy values, show them how the values hurt them and your family. You can also point out examples of bad values in other people and from the media and describe why the values are unhealthy. Many people think that values are lofty ideals that have little connection with their daily lives. But values should be woven into the very fabric of your children's lives and your family's lives. Show them how values are reflected in the activities in which they participate, who they interact with, and the choices they make. For example, finishing a school project on time, taking out the garbage, and reading with a younger sibling all express positive values of discipline, responsibility, and caring, respectively. Again, using contrast as a learning tool, show your children how negative values are expressed. For example, how laziness, unkindness, and lying is conveyed. There is no better classroom for teaching about unhealthy values than in the popular media. Television, radio, video games, and magazines are rife with destructive values from which your children can learn. Use these opportunities to highlight healthy and unhealthy values by talking to them about the media messages and what underlying values are being communicated. One very down-to-earth way values are expressed is in the rules, boundaries, and expectations that you establish in your family. Each of these prescriptions is based upon the values that you hold and the messages you want to convey to your children about values. For example, family chores, helping others, putting school first, and being physically active. Unfortunately, many children simply see rules, boundaries, and expectations as limitations placed on their freedom by their parents without rationale or purpose. By explicitly linking your values with these directives, your children understand the reasoning behind your dictates and see their value. Don't just simply lay down the law, but rather discuss how the limits you place on them are related to your values and how they benefit your children. Perhaps the most powerful way to help your children understand the importance of values is to discuss with them the consequences of healthy and unhealthy values. A valuable lesson for them is to learn that if they act in valued ways, good things happen. And if they act according to bad values, bad things happen. Example of this relationship can include good effort in school, being compassionate to others causes others to respond in kind, and being caught stealing results in punishment and a loss of trust. An unfortunate obstacle to teaching children about the consequences of living by one's values is that acting on good values is not always rewarded and bad values are not always punished in our society. To the contrary, popular culture often glorifies and rewards bad values. For example, domestic violence, drug use, and bad behavior hasn't prevented professional sports teams from paying talented athletes exorbitant salaries. For example, Terrell Owens and Kobe Bryant. The recording industry persists in promoting hip-hop artists and rock stars despite rap sheets that continue to grow. And sadly, young people continue to worship them. It's these conflicting messages that your children receive every day that make your job teaching healthy values so much more difficult. A powerful way to foster your children's understanding and appreciation of values is to talk to them about value dilemmas that they'll face as they move through childhood and into young adulthood. For younger children, topics might include lying, selfishness, stealing, and cheating. Issues for older children can include sexual behavior and alcohol and drug use. Value dilemmas arise every day in your children's lives. Either they're faced with dilemmas themselves or they're examples of value dilemmas in popular media. You should have your radar attuned to these dilemmas and use them as opportunities to educate your children about these quandaries. With younger children, you will want to emphasize the tangible consequences of the choices presented in the dilemmas. For example, what trouble they would get into if they stole a piece of candy that they really wanted. With older children, you can have more sophisticated discussions about self-respect, dangers to themselves and others, and implications for their futures. For example, what are the personal, social, and criminal ramifications of drinking and driving? Finally, here are some recommendations for teaching your children values. Make a list of your most important values. Consider which of your values are healthy and unhealthy, and be honest with yourself. Determine whether you're living your life in accordance with your healthy values. Look for value moments in your family's daily life to teach your children about values. Recognize the unhealthy values from popular culture to which your children are exposed. Importantly, actively resist those values promoted by popular culture. Lastly, keep sending those value messages until your children really get them. Why, you ask, is that so important? Because these values may make the difference in your children's futures. I'm Dr. Jim Taylor for Prime Family Alert.